27-point lead. Down goes Johnson. Oh no. They're shredding him.
Have you seen Luka Doncic recently? He's in the best shape of his life, often being criticized for his bad shape and his weight. Luka has put in the extra work this summer, and he's ready to show the world what he's got. Starting in his 5th NBA season, Luka and the Mavericks are thinking about one thing, and that's the NBA championship. Having played in the EuroBasket League this summer, and looking like he found his rhythm, and with a lot of attention towards his fitness regime, Luka looks better physically than ever. Working with Slovenia's trainer Ante Masic over the summer really helped him look more slender. As a reminder, last year he took 6 weeks off and gained more than 15 pounds. And he came to training camp in bad shape, and he struggled with injuries. This year, however, he got only 2 weeks to rest before training camp started, posting unbelievable numbers in EuroBasket, scoring 47 points against France. Only fuels Luka to be better this year. How much better can he become? He is by far the best offensive player in the NBA. His offensive skills, his dribbling, his pick and roll play, his three-pointers, and his drives are almost unguardable, averaging 28.4 points per game, with 9.1 rebounds and 8.7 assists. He looks like he can single-handedly lead the Mavs to the finals. And that's what he did last year. Luka carried the Mavericks on his shoulders to the Western Conference Finals, where they lost to the eventual champions, the Golden State Warriors. Nobody predicted them to come as far as they did in the beginning, but Luka Magic started spreading with every fantastic game he played. In the playoffs, Luka has averaged an unbelievable 32.5 points per game, with 9.3 rebounds and 7.9 assists. His playoff average is only second to Michael Jordan, and he's only 23 years old. Funny thing is, the more Luka spends time with the ball, the Mavs are playing better. Last season, Luka had the highest usage rate in the NBA, and the Mavs reached the Western Conference Finals for the first time in 11 years. The answer is simple. Just give Luka the ball, and let Luka Magic run its course. After the Mavericks traded Porzingis, Luka switched to another gear and started dominating the floor, putting in 32 points on a 47.4% shooting for 2 and a 39.9% for 3. He led the NBA in drives toward the basket and in usage rate. Simultaneously, the Mavs started winning more than before. When Spencer Dinwiddie came to Dallas, he opened up a lot of room for Luka to rest. Since Dinwiddie lacks consistency, he plays as the Mavs' third option, but he is solid on defense and on the offensive side. Plus, when he starts draining threes, he leaves the perimeter unchecked, and that's where Luka shines the most. When Jalen Brunson left the Mavs, a big hole was left in the playmaking part of the offensive. Luka can't do it all by himself, so Brunson was the Robin to Luka's Batman, averaging 22 points in the playoffs. Also, Brunson was the guy who could drain a three, break the perimeter, assist, and play defense. He was an all-around player that the Mavs sorely needed. Now, without adding that kind of player to their roster, a big gap is open in their rotation. With the addition of Christian Wood, the Mavs have gained a strong 4 or 5 position player, but Wood's defense isn't that good. That's why their head coach, Jason Kidd, states that Wood will be coming off the bench. Kidd is a defensive coach first, and since he got the offense covered with only one guy, Luka, he intends to build on his defense. Players like Dwight Powell, Reggie Bullock, and Dorian Finney-Smith are great defenders and can play better all around than Wood. Despite Wood averaging 14.2 points per game, Kidd wants to build his team around Luka and let him decide who's going to get the ball and who's not. The Mavs also have great shooters from around the perimeters, including Tim Hardaway Jr., who isn't that consistent, but when he starts draining threes, all hell is about to break loose. Still, without the addition of another superstar, it all comes down to Luka. He would need to play at least 70 games this season in order to give the Mavs a chance for the 5th or 6th spot in the Western Conference. But Luka, having lost in the Western Conference Finals, plans not to have that experience again. His motivation could be seen in this year's EuroBasket. He even said that he doesn't need another superstar on the team. He plans to do it almost all alone. Being a triple-double machine already, we could only anticipate what numbers he's gonna put out. Battling with Jokic in the West, who won the MVP award 2 consecutive times, it is now plain that Luka would need to play minutes and games more than ever. If this results in bigger numbers, Luka is destined to win this year's MVP award. Lacking a point guard starter and a point guard substitute, the hole in the Mavs rotation is obvious. Luckily, Luka can play it all. He can even guard big guys. But we totally forgot about Maxi Kleber. The big guy can shoot, score, and defend guards. He can do it all. Kleber extended his contract with the Mavs for another 3 years, and he's been a very solid all-around player, working on both sides of the court. The question remains, What will Christian Wood bring to the table? If he manages to get a lot of playing time, he could wreak havoc offensively. He reminds me of a young Hassan Whiteside, but who could shoot. He and Luka would be unstoppable in the pick and roll game. Adding to their pick and roll game, if their shooters Hardaway Jr. and Dinwiddie put together a solid performance this year, there is a reason for optimism in the Mavs ranks. Still, the decision to trade Jalen Brunson for Christian Wood is being considered a bust. Clubs in the West have only gotten stronger, and the competition is fierce. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are healthy and have returned to the Clippers. The Minnesota Timberwolves signed Rudy Gobert. Zion Williamson returned to the New Orleans Hornets. Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. have returned to the Denver Nuggets. And the Golden State Warriors, last year's champions, have only gotten stronger. That leaves the Mavs weakened and looking so much worse than the other teams in the West, just by looking at the rosters. But Dirk Nowitzki also played his whole life for the Mavs, and he managed to win a championship. Luka, following in the footsteps of Dirk, who was his personal idol and someone he admired since he was a kid, is also a franchise player, and he's looking to stay in Dallas and bring home the championship trophy. If he manages to improve every year, only the sky could be the limit for the 23-year-old Slovenian. Still, Spencer Dinwiddie needs to step up as the second ball handler, and their rim protectors need to do their job. Since Luka also has a history of injuries, it isn't looking good that he has to play more games than ever. If he gets hurt, the Mavs will need to rely on other players to fill the spot. Last year, when Luka missed 10 games due to an ankle injury, the Mavs went 5-5 with a lot of unknown players stepping up. I'm hoping Doncic doesn't get hurt, because we might witness one of the best seasons for a 23-year-old player in NBA history. With a player that can do it all, Dallas fans are in for a wild ride, and I'm sure every home game will be sold. With almost a triple-double average, Luka is on his way to greatness. Also, the Mavs added JaVale McGee as a fine rim protector and a person who will motivate and ignite Luka to be better. Since Jokic, the two-time MVP, needed to step up because the Nuggets lost Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr., their two starters this season, Jokic won't have to carry his team on his shoulders. That will result in lower stats, and that opens the way for Luka to step up. Having been in the top 5 voted players for the MVP award 2 years in a row, Luka is very close. Very, very close. Finally, when I think about the Dallas Mavericks and Luka, I am immediately reminded of a young LeBron and the Cleveland Cavaliers. As a reminder, LeBron took the Cavs on his shoulders and carried them to the NBA Finals. LeBron was only 22 years old, and Luka is 23 now. LeBron played almost alone, with a roster of semi-decent players. Luka is now in the same situation. If he manages to lead the Mavs to the finals, then he will put himself on the same pedestal as the king of basketball.